views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Meetings of the Minds in partnership with BronxNet Television. As you are aware, these segments were born out of necessity to keep each and every one of us connected. You see, COVID-19 presented so many challenges and we were no longer able to meet in person, but there were still resources valuable for each and every one of us to share and continue to give back to our community. So if you are not yet a member of the New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, hey, we still need you. You can easily go to www.hispanicchamber.nyc and become a part of our familia. The goal of this particular interview with Dianne Morales will be to talk about bold career transitions from CEO to mayoral candidate. Dianne Morales is the former CEO and executive director of Phipps Neighborhoods. As a member, Phipps has always supported the New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. The New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has also partnered with Dianne Morales to create the first ever Phenomenal Woman event in Puerto Rico, in which we recognized a couple of women that Dianne had encountered as she drove from town to town, helping communities affected by Maria. Please welcome Dianne Morales. So let's get right to it. Dianne, bold career transition from CEO to mayoral candidate. So let's take it back for just a bit. You worked as CEO for Phipps. Can you talk about your key responsibilities?
Sure. Hi, Sulma. First of all, thank you for having me on. It's great to be here and great to see you. So I was the CEO of Phipps Neighborhoods for almost a decade. And I would say that my primary responsibility there was to find ways to help improve the quality of life for the most challenged residents in the South Bronx. I was trying to help them access economic opportunity and stability. I was trying to help them access pathways into higher education, and sort of the resources that institutionally and systemically are so much harder for Black and Brown families in low-income communities to access normally. So that's the big picture. On a day-to-day basis, I was helping to design and develop programs. I was managing a budget in the tens of millions. I was overseeing staff, several hundred staff, and helping to make sure that everybody was working towards the same goals and aligned in that work and clear in the role that they played in helping to really fulfill our vision of lifting people out of poverty in the South Bronx.
This is fantastic. What was your biggest takeaway from all of that experience?
So my biggest takeaway, one of the biggest takeaways is that there are structures and systems at play that actually make it harder for Black and Brown families to access opportunity and to live the American dream. Mm-hmm. And also that those very people in the community have the best sense of what they need in order to overcome their own challenges.
Mm-hmm. So you pretty much got an inside scoop on how the system operates behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I did, because a lot of the work that we did that was successful actually kind of involved figuring out how to work around some of the challenges of the system, mm-hmm. so that people could still get in, or creating alternatives so that people could access opportunity, because the system actually wasn't helping them, right? It was often, between the bureaucracy and all the hoops that you have to jump through, it actually kind of created a lot more barriers for people and made it harder. So we were always trying to figure out kind of how to work around it and really create opportunities for folks to move in their life.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. So here's the question of the hour.
Okay.
What prompted you to make this transition from CEO? You know, there's not a lot of women CEOs out there,
Yes,
especially Afro-Latinas.
that's right.
So what prompted you to run for mayor of New York City?
I mean, so I think that the answer to that is a layered one. I mean, first is, as I was just describing, becoming aware after so many years of how many systemic and institutional barriers exist to work against our communities made me feel like I wanted to make a difference and make an impact at a different level. That even though I was being really successful in the South Bronx with that community, literally for every 10,000 people that we served successfully, there was another 50,000 people in line for the services. And that, when you start to see that, you start to realize that there's something bigger at play here. And so I felt like I was playing small by not actually attacking those systems and creating change so that we could open the floodgates for all of our communities. And then the other thing is that I am a Black Latina. I am a single mom. I have 2 children who had learning differences. There's so many different experiences that I have had personally that help give me a front row seat to the challenges that people in our communities face. So I just thought, the combination of the life that I've lived personally and the work that I've done professionally, that's what we really need to be represented in leadership and governance so that we can actually create the kind of change that we need, right? So it was those things that made me feel like, it's enough. It's time for us to have a real seat at the table so that we can create real change. And, and then I just thought, well, why not me?
Yeah, why not you? Who better? Why not you, right?
Exactly.
So I just want to make it really clear, right, that here at the New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we do not endorse any candidate, but it is our responsibility to educate our constituents on issues of concern, right, which is why we're here. As we listen to the words of the mayoral candidate, what should we as a community of voters be asking ourselves while the candidates are speaking, right, so that they don't run us in circles, but we get straight to the issues.
Right. I think it's important for us to be thinking about, for people to be thinking about, we are living in an unprecedented moment in time in the history of our country. The challenges and the difficulties that we face and the combination of those challenges and difficulties are unlike anything that we've ever experienced before. So a key question for me would be, what is this person gonna do that's gonna be different than what's happened before? How is this person thinking about this moment in time as a window or an opportunity to shift things so that we actually really get to a place where there's equity and equality and justice, instead of trying to pull us back into the old ways and the way things used to be, or what was normal, because we know that what was normal wasn't actually working for so many communities. It wasn't working for women, it wasn't working for Black families, it wasn't working for Latino families. And I think it got exposed in the pandemic, when we saw, at the height of the pandemic in New York, when we saw the essential workers, they were, all of these people were suddenly deemed essential workers, but they're the lowest paid, they're the least protected, they're the ones that are vulnerable in terms of housing, and yet suddenly they're essential, and now nobody's talking about them, and nobody's looking out for them. So I would really want to think about, what are we going to do differently moving forward, and what is this person going to bring to the table that will help push that vision forward? And is this person connected to the old ways, and and just going to sort of slowly pull us back to the old ways, or is this person really going to bring change for us that impacts all of us and represent us in a different kind of way?
I think you hit the nail on the head. There are very these are very different times, very challenging times. Representation has been at the core of all these conversations, diversity, equity. You have been very vocal, even here on our interview, that you are the first Afro-Latina mayoral candidate, woman of beautiful color, as I would like to, as I always love to describe. Why is it important for you to identify, and why do you think that New York is ready for this?
Listen, it's important to identify because it's unprecedented. It's important to identify because it is time for us to have a seat at the table. It is important to identify because I think women lead differently. And I think women of color in particular lead differently. We are socialized, and the role that we have played because of the burdens and the challenges that we have in society, we are much more likely to not just take care of ourselves, but we take care of family, we take care of community. Mm-hmm. That's how we do. That's how we've had to survive. Mm-hmm. And so we have that inclination. And I think that's the kind of framework and that's the kind of thinking that we need to be adopting as we think about how we recover and come out of this in a new sort of way. Mm-hmm. I also think it's important because it's a very serious, for me, it's a responsibility. Yeah. I understand what it means to be the first. And I understand what it means in terms of the next generation seeing us be bold. Mm-hmm. And seeing us claim space in places that we have historically not been welcomed. Right. And not been represented. And so for all of those reasons, I think it matters. I think we have to, break through those barriers because no one's going to give us a seat at the table. So we have to step up, we have to step in, and we have to take it. Mm-hmm. And I am happy and proud to sort of be the first in that way. At the same time that, as I said, I am very acutely aware of the responsibility and, and the weight of it and the seriousness of it. So it's an honor and it's a privilege. And I want to remind myself of that all the time. And I want to make sure that the young women that come up to me in the street to go, oh my God, are you Dianne Morales? You're the one that's running for mayor. Understand that they can see themselves in me because I see myself in them.
No, well said, well stated. Speaking of young people, right, I also have been following you on Instagram, and I see that your children are also with you. And I normally start the conversation, how are you, cómo está la familia? But I kind of wanted to wait till the end to ask that question. And also, as a mom, are you going to be sending your kids back to school? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that because I not only have my 2 college-age children at home, I also have my senior parents living with me. So there are 3 generations living under my roof. It was not planned. It just it happened by accident because my parents tried to move to Puerto Rico and then the earthquakes started there. So they came here for what we thought was going to be just a few weeks and then the pandemic hit. Mm-hmm. But that's another way I think that I am not alone. I think there's a lot of low-income communities and families of color that have multiple generations living under their roof, particularly right now. So that's the first challenge is 3 generations. And then my children are home and my children are staying home, which is going to be another challenge. They kind of, I didn't make the decision on my own. We sort of made it together. Both of their schools, well, my daughter's school has gone primarily remote. They prioritize bringing their freshmen onto campus because I think they want to build community with the freshmen. So there was like a special application process. If you weren't a freshman and wanted to come onto campus, I think they're both worried about being isolated, right? Given the rules, the quarantine rules and all of that on campuses, they both were, I think, concerned about being lonely. So it was a decision that was made partially out of that, through that lens. Also, as a single mom, there's the financial lens, right? Because housing is sometimes more expensive than tuition, depending on where you are. I know for my son at a state school, the housing and meal component is actually more expensive than the tuition. So I had to factor that in as well. That being said, I'm also on the front lines in the New York City public school system because I don't think the city has the right plan to send, our children back to school. And so, if I were a parent of a child in the public school system, I definitely would not be sending my kids back to school. Because I don't think that there's enough of a plan to guarantee their safety.
Yeah, and it was important for me to ask you this, Dianne, because I think that it's important for people to get to know that as we, transition, bold career moves from one place to another, there's still a big balance that has to take place. Taking care of yourself, a global pandemic, social justice,
yes.
Issues and challenges. There's a lot dealing with money, understanding economics, and just based on what you said, you're full circle. You understand each and every aspect of it, and you've always been a strong supporter of the New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we wish you the best of luck. And I want to encourage everyone to definitely continue to get educated. We will be bringing you more education on this so that our community understands what our issues are, and making sure that we elect someone that cares about us and knows us, and more importantly, sees us. Thank you so much, Dianne. We appreciate your time.
Gracias, Sulma.